At the start of Ritual League, I decided that I was going to play Bleed Last Rate Gladiator. Now the thing about playing melee build on League Start is that you're at a severe disadvantage, and by disadvantage I mean falling 10 days of progress behind your peers, because you get so bored of the axe and start dabbling in the new season of League of Legends. But don't worry, I eventually made a return to Path Exile, so after returning to Raid class and taking 10 hours to reach the maps, I plunged right into the Atlas grind. A friend had lent me his spare Jack the Axe, and I had saved up just enough to purchase a 6-link and Lionize Remorse. With Jack in one hand and Remorse in the other, I was ready to tackle the challenges of the new Atlas. Gone are the days that I would League start with a pure Fizz Skelemancer, and in with the new era of Bleed Last Rate Gladiators. Now since I was broke and had no way of upgrading my gear to progress my Atlas, I decided to do what I did best. Farm 100 white maps and log all of the loot I made into a spreadsheet. This is making currency in Path of Exile. So as many of you guys may or may not know, I'm quite infamous for farming hundreds of unaltered white tier maps just for the kicks and giggles. But more important than that, doing this also helps me gauge just how potent new League mechanics tend to be in terms of yielding profits. And with videos like this, I hope to at least bring players some insights on what kinds of profits one can expect, since I'm literally farming maps under the least profitable conditions. But with that being said, let's jump right into the data. So as you guys may have seen from the title, after running 100 unaltered white tier maps, I was able to obtain around 820 chaos worth of loot. I usually like to split my maps into 10 separate farming sessions where I farm 10 maps per session. With the new addition of rituals to each map, however, my average time to complete each session actually increased to about 40 minutes per session, even though I farmed on a build that was substantially faster than my usual Impale Cyclone champion. Now with this we can calculate that it took me roughly 400 minutes or 6.67 hours to complete all 100 maps. Therefore, we can find that my average rate of currency gain was around 120 chaos per hour. If you want to see all the breakdowns and calculations of my loot in a spreadsheet, the link is in the description below. Now, 120 chaos per hour is quite a bit higher than my usual 70 to 80 chaos per hour when it comes to farming a bunch of random white maps. And it doesn't really take a genius to figure out that rituals played quite a big role in increasing the amount of profits that each map yielded. You'll find in my data that I was able to collect a total of 66 raw chaos orbs, which was previously unheard of when it came to farming the lowest tier of maps. And this is something that was only possible due to the addition of rituals, since players will often come across the stacks of 10 chaos orbs that essentially boost their profits for that one map. Players could also have the luck of stumbling across exalted orbs, which after about 2 or 3 deferrals was very much affordable from their ritual. The occurrence of exalts in rituals were honestly a lot more common than exalts occurring off of regular monster drops, and that went quite a ways in boosting my profit gains as well. Something very much worth mentioning is that I also came across a Rislatha's Coil in one of my rituals, which is a very high ticket chase item that I undercut and was able to sell for about 4 exalts. Thinking back on it now, I probably should have hung onto that belt a little longer, or priced it at around 5 to 6 exalts, but of course there's no point dwelling on that now. And speaking of high ticket drops, I also had the sheer luck of coming across a Brother's Stash. Now considering how broken my RNG seemed at this point, I decided to just trade this away for a measly 5 chisels. It's not a likely case that most casuals in PoE like myself will come across that card anyways. Now back to the other sources of profits. Along the way during these 100 maps, I was able to drop a Cold Iron point, which unfortunately it seems to be quite common, as I remember them being around 30 chaos each in the past, but now go for about 8 chaos. I also got a Primordial Eminence from a ritual which went for 8 chaos as well. One of the more consistent forms of income during this grind was over-sustaining maps and obtaining alteration orbs, either from raw drops or the alteration shard recipe. After running all 100 maps, I ended up with a total of 175 white tier maps that have dropped throughout the farming sessions. Now a lot of you guys will probably talk about how it's hard to trade white maps for chaos, and while this is true, I would like to point out that I now have a large supply of white maps and will probably never have to buy white maps ever again whenever I want to level new characters, and in my book that counts as profit. Now let's take a look at the alteration orbs. If we take into consideration only the profits from our raw currency category, we'll find that alteration orbs was the 3rd highest currency in terms of yielding profits, behind obviously the exalt and chaos orbs. However, this was only from using leftover ritual points to purchase random rares from my rituals. Had I actually been more aggressive with filling my inventory with rares every map, I probably would have made somewhere around as much value in alterations as I did in chaos orbs. So that's really where the vast majority of my profits came from. I'm more than certain that many of you will point out that the Rislatha's Squale made up for almost half of my profits, but the reason I don't really see an issue in keeping a high ticket item like that in my data is because it perfectly illustrates the capabilities of the Ritual League mechanic. Just like most things in Path of Exile, if you grind it long enough, you'll eventually come across something worth quite a lot. And with the implementation of rituals, I actually think that coming across high ticket items is a lot more common than they once were. On top of your usual chance at dropping high ticket items off of normal monsters, you now have an extra ritual mechanic to look forward to that massively increases your chances of finding something juicy. So that's all I've really been up to these past couple weeks. I definitely had a super slow league start, but the nice thing about this pace is that the strategies I deploy in these early stages of progression are very much accessible by the average PoE player. Just play the game and pick stuff up. A lot of you may think that I'm a little crazy for not at least alching my maps, but there's something almost therapeutic about turning off your brain cells, grinding out low tier maps, and never worrying about getting killed while still making quite a bit of profits. Anyways, that's just the way I like to enjoy PoE, but I'm just rambling at this point, so thank you for watching and I hope to see you next time.